They say if you marry someone who doesn't love where you're from, eventually they'll start to hate you for it too. I learned that the slow way, like water seeping into fence post rot. When I brought Jill out to my family's ranch, 300 acres of wind, dust, and generations of stubborn love, she smiled like she meant it. Said things like, "It's so peaceful," and "I've always wanted land," and "Imagine the sunsets." She imagined them exactly twice. Then she started flinching at the smell of manure and asking questions like, "Why do the cows stare at me like that?" Or, "Is it normal to have snakes just around?" It didn't bother me at first. Not everyone grows up with calloused palms and a working understanding of barbed wire etiquette. But the problem with Jill wasn't that she hated the dirt. It's that she pretended to love it until it got in the way of her little escape plan. We'd been married 5 years when the changes started. Subtle, like dust devils that look harmless until they kick open a chicken coop. First it was the clothes. Her jeans went from Wrangler to high-waist stretch, something that had never seen a saddle. Then came the wellness kick. Yoga on the deck at dawn. Green smoothies made with powders that smelled like fish tank pebbles. She started following some guy named Sage on Instagram who did hot yoga in Austin and called himself a spine whisperer. Didn't think much of it. Not until she started spending her weekends in town. At first it was farmers markets. Then wellness workshops. Then creative restoration weekends that somehow required full makeup, a manicure, and a change of perfume. She always smelled like hotel shampoo when she came back. You know the kind. Fake lavender, strong enough to make your nose sting. I still didn't say anything. You grow up around cows, you learn patience. But then Hank told me. Hank's our ranch hand. Been with the family since I was a kid. Knows the land better than I do. And he doesn't say much, unless something's worth saying. We were fixing the gate near the north woodshed, shooting the breeze about coyote traps, when he goes, "You know, I've been seeing a truck up by the shed some Fridays. Not ours. Out-of-state plates. Gray Tacoma. Real clean." I kept hammering. "Only shows up when you're not around," he added, voice low. "And when Jill's car's gone." I didn't ask for details. Didn't need to. Hank doesn't stir the pot unless the pot's on fire. That night, I told Jill I had a cattle auction coming up in Amarillo and I'd be gone the next weekend. She didn't ask many questions. Almost like she expected it. That's when I knew. So next Friday, instead of heading north, I drove east, down to the ridge near County Road 14, where the hills curved just enough to hide your truck but still give you a line of sight. It was just after 6 p.m. when I saw her. She wasn't in yoga clothes. She was in the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she'd said was too formal for anything around here. She pulled into the dirt lot behind the only motel in town with a back entrance. 10 minutes later, a gray Tacoma pulled up. He got out. Tall. Tan. One of those handsome if you squint and ignore the ego types. Wore a tank top, cargo shorts, and muddy boots. Muddy. Boots. Funny, she always complained about mine. They kissed in the parking lot like teenagers who thought their parents were asleep. He grabbed her by the waist and spun her around, right there next to the dumpster. Romantic. They disappeared inside. I waited. Didn't take photos. Didn't follow. Just watched the door close and listened to the dry wind rustle the mesquite trees and thought about how long I'd known. I drove home slow. Made dinner. Fed the dogs. Sat on the porch with a beer like nothing had happened. And for the next 2 weeks, I didn't say a word. Because if Jill wanted a performance, I was about to give her one worth remembering. You can tell a lot about a person by how they treat small towns. Some people respect them. Some try to blend in. Jill? Jill treated the local co-op like it was a petting zoo and every weekend trip to town like she was flying in from Manhattan for a photo op. After I saw her with Mr. Muddy Boots at the motel, I didn't confront her. I didn't flip tables or scream about betrayal. That's what she expected. Drama. Outrage. A scene she could spin into victimhood when she told her version of events to her friends. I didn't give her that. I gave her silence. A slow, stretching, surgical silence. For 13 days, I played my role to perfection. Made breakfast. Asked about her workshops. Even fixed her phone charger when she said it was being finicky. You'd be amazed how quickly someone will believe they're safe again when you act just dumb enough. But behind the scenes, I was preparing. See, we'd been meaning to host a big get-together out at the ranch. Something to show the property off again, reintroduce ourselves after the long COVID drought and all that. I figured, what better occasion than a vow renewal? Yeah, that's what I called it. Jill nearly choked on her kale when I suggested it. A vow renewal, she blinked. Like, with people watching? I shrugged, casual as could be. Sure. Why not? We've been through a lot lately. Thought it might be good to remind folks we're solid. She hesitated, not because she was feeling guilty, but because she was trying to calculate what I knew. Eventually, she smiled. That sounds sweet. Really sweet. And just like that, we had ourselves a party. The next 10 days were a blur of planning. I called her parents first, made a big deal of it. Don't tell her. I want it to be a surprise, I said. You'll love it. Then I invited every friend of hers who still lived within driving distance, including her best friend Sadie, the kind of woman who gives side eyes for sport. And of course, the local co-op. People love a cookout out here. Toss in the words ceremony and community, and you'll have half the county RSVP in under 48 hours. I told everyone to come hungry and dress casual. Jill, for her part, leaned into it like she'd been nominated for Wife of the Year. She ordered decorations, found a white sundress, even had a little rustic arch delivered from Etsy, and made me haul the damn thing in a place near the tree line. Do we have to say vows again? She asked one night, sipping her herbal tea. Just a little something, I said. Doesn't have to be poetic. She smiled, then said, good, because I'm not good with speeches. That one almost made me laugh. Not good with speeches? She'd had one memorized 2 months ago, rehearsing it in the mirror when she thought I was in the barn, talking about synergy and vision and why I'm the perfect fit for this firm. I remember watching her from the hallway, how she paced and gestured like a TED talker in stilettos. But sure, let's pretend she can't find the words now. The day of the cookout arrived like a postcard. Blue sky, warm breeze, sun filtering through the pecan trees just enough to make the beer taste colder. I grilled the ribs myself. Wouldn't trust that job to anyone else. Hank manned the smoker. My cousin set up speakers and a mic. Jill fluttered around like she was running a campaign, hugging guests and gushing about the fresh start we were celebrating. Her parents were there, both wearing their best denim and trying not to sweat through it. Her dad gave me a handshake that lingered. Her mom gave me a once-over that said, "Are you sure about this?" Oh, I was sure. By 4 p.m., everyone had a plate in hand, and the mood was high. Dogs ran loose, kids played tag, and the co-op rep I'd invited was already 3 beers deep, talking irrigation subsidies with a rancher from down the road. When I tapped the mic, people quieted quicker than I expected. Hey folks, I said. Appreciate y'all coming out. Means a lot to us, to me and Jill, to see so many friendly faces out here on the land we love. Polite applause. Jill beamed at me like we were on stage at a county fair. I know we called this a vow renewal, I continued. And technically, that's still happening. But before we do that, I want to share a little slideshow. Her face changed just a little at the word slideshow. You see, I said, clicking the remote in my pocket. This past year's been full of growth. And some surprises. So I figured we'd take a little walk down memory lane. The projector lit up the white sidewall of the barn behind me. First slide. Me and Jill on the porch, laughing. Her parents. Her friends. Photos from our wedding. Everyone cooed and smiled. Then the transitions got sharper. Jill and Austin. Solo shots she'd posted. Her at that boutique motel, snapped from a distance, just clear enough to recognize the dress. The Tacoma truck in the background. Then, Jill kissing the yoga instructor in the parking lot. Then, a still from a different angle, his hand on her lower back, both of them laughing. Gasps. Silence. Someone dropped a cup. I didn't look at Jill. I didn't need to. Her silence said more than a confession ever could. I clicked once more. Black screen. Then I spoke. Turns out, Jill's been doing a lot of stretching lately. Just not on our marriage. Nervous laughter from the drunker folks. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is a bit much for a cookout. But hey, transparency's the foundation of trust, right? The crowd wasn't clapping anymore. I turned back to the mic, voice steady. Jill, honey, you're welcome to say something. Or pack your things. Either way, the gate code's already changed. But it didn't end there. Because out of the stunned crowd stepped Sadie, Claire's best friend. She was holding her phone, her face pale. I just called him, she said. Her voice trembled, with rage, not sadness. That man, the yoga guy. Jill looked up, mouth barely moving. Sadie continued. He's my husband. Or was. Dead silence. And that was the twist. The moment I'd known might come, if karma was paying attention. Sadie didn't cry. She didn't slap. She just turned, got in her car, and drove off like she had divorce papers to print before sunset. Jill stood there in her white sundress, mascara clinging for dear life, as the guests began to disperse. No one said goodbye. There's a particular kind of quiet that follows a public betrayal. Not the sad kind, not even the angry kind. Just clean, like the land after a wildfire. Charred, yeah, but finally visible. The cookout ended without ceremony. People trickled out, avoiding eye contact, whispering to their partners like it was a funeral. Jill stood alone near the woodshed, arms crossed, still wearing that stupid white sundress like it was armor instead of costume. She didn't say a word as I packed up the mic, rolled the cables, and handed the leftover brisket to Hank. Her parents left early. Her mom offered me one long, wet-eyed hug and said, "You didn't deserve this." Her dad couldn't even look at me. Whether it was shame or guilt, I didn't care anymore. Sadie didn't come back, but I got a text from her that night. Just 4 words. "He's gone. Thank you." I didn't reply. What was there to say? By sundown, Jill finally came inside. Didn't stomp. Didn't scream. Just floated around the kitchen like a ghost. Unmoored and shocked that her haunting didn't scare me anymore. We sat across from each other at the big pine table. The same one my granddad built. The one that had held every birthday, Thanksgiving, argument, and apology for 3 generations. I waited. She finally spoke. "You ruined my life," she said. Her voice was quiet. Flat. I smiled. "Just a little." "You beat me to it," I said. She didn't argue. She just dropped her eyes to her lap and let the silence stretch between us like a drawstring. After a minute, I pushed an envelope across the table. Inside were 2 things, a printed copy of our prenup and a one-way bus ticket to Austin. Departing tomorrow. Her hand trembled as she picked it up. "You planned this." "No," I said. "You did. I just helped it along." She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't. Maybe she'd built an image of me so safe, so soft, that she didn't think I had a backbone left to stand on. But she forgot one thing. People raised on land know how to wait for the right season. "You're not going to fight me?" she asked. "For what? You want half a ranch you hate? Go ahead. But it'll come with the mortgage, the upkeep, the feed bills. And Hank." That one landed. She folded the paper slowly. "What if I don't leave?" she said, testing me. I leaned back. "Then you'll be here when Sadie comes to get the rest of her stuff from your closet." Her jaw set. "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and tapped a voicemail. Her voice came out, clear as glass. I didn't want to believe it until I saw the photos. He wore those boots into my bedroom. "Tell Jill she's not just losing a marriage. She's losing everything." Jill's face broke, not with guilt, but with calculation. Watching the walls close in. Watching every door she could have used lock, one by one. "You were never boring," she whispered. I laughed. "And you were never clever." She stood, holding the envelope like it was acid, and walked upstairs without another word. I heard her packing. Slowly, clumsily. Like a kid cleaning their room only because they got caught. I slept on the couch. Not because I was noble. I just didn't want to share air. The next morning, I made coffee, fed the dogs, and watched the sunrise paint the pasture gold. Jill came down just after 7, backpack slung over one shoulder, lips chapped, eyes red. She looked like someone trying to play victim but running out of script. "I'll come back for the rest," she muttered. "No need," I said. "I boxed it up already." A pause. "Where is it?" I nodded toward the porch. 3 cardboard boxes set neatly by the door, labeled in black Sharpie. Clothes. Makeup. Lies. That one hit her. I saw it. But she still didn't cry. Jill never cried when it mattered. Only when it benefited her. She left without another word. Didn't look back. Just the rumble of her borrowed ride down the gravel, then silence again. Hank showed up a little after 9. He didn't ask what happened. Just tipped his hat and said, "Heard you got your house back." I nodded. "Yeah, something like that." We rode the fence line that day. Checked on the herd. Fixed a latch. Didn't say much. But I remember thinking, this silence, was the kind I could live with. No pretending. No schemes. Just open sky and the sound of something real. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer and watched the stars come back. They always do, if you wait long enough. The thing about a betrayal that big is, people don't forget. They don't always talk about it out loud. Not in the feed store, not in church, not even at the co-op. But it's in the air, thick as humidity before a storm. They look at you different. like they're waiting to see if you'll break or bury it. But I didn't do either. I just got to work. The week after Jill left, I went through the house with a garbage bag and a mission. Every fake smiling photo of us. Gone. Every candle that smelled like city rain and synthetic eucalyptus. Tossed. Her bookshelf of half-read manifestos about empowerment and energy healing. Donated to the VFW, where they'd get more laughs than enlightenment. I kept only what mattered. Tools. Leather. My grandfather's watch. The dog-eared notebook with a feed rotation plan in my handwriting and his. I reclaimed every square foot of the place she'd tried to make hers without ever earning it. Even the guest room got converted into a tack room. Let that be a metaphor. Word spread, of course. First it was the cashier at the gas station who said, "Heard your yoga girl moved back to the city." I smiled and nodded. No point correcting the rumor when the truth's more useful in silence. Then it was the sheriff's wife at the farmer's market who hugged me a little longer than usual and said, "Men like you don't stay single long." I didn't answer that either. Not out of politeness, but because I didn't care. I wasn't playing the rebound game. This wasn't about getting even. It was about resetting. You spend enough time with people like Jill, and you start to lose your edges. They sand you down with compliments and critiques until you're smooth enough to fit whatever fantasy they've got in their head. But eventually the corners grow back. And mine. They came back sharp. I got back to ranching the old way. Woke up before dawn. Got dirt under my nails. Ate real food. Started riding again. Took the dogs out to the far pasture and let the wind wash everything else away. I hadn't felt that alive in years. But just when I thought the drama was over, the phone rang. It was Sadie. I hadn't spoken to her since the vow renewal cookout. Hadn't even known if she stayed in town after dropping the bomb on Jill. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "I need a favor," she said. I waited. "You still got that slideshow?" I didn't need to ask which one. "Yeah," I said. "I need it. Court dates next month. Custody." Silence on the line. Then, "He's trying to say I was unstable. Claims I fabricated the whole affair. That it was emotional, not physical. You're the only one who caught them." I thought for a second. "You sure you want to play it that way?" Her voice cracked just slightly. "I'm done being polite." So I emailed her the folder. Every photo, every frame. I didn't ask how it turned out. But 2 weeks later, I got a thank you card. Inside was a photo of Sadie and her 2 kids, standing outside a new house with a sold sign. Back of the note just said, "We're free now, and he can keep the Tacoma." Sometimes justice doesn't come loud. Sometimes it comes with a key and a clean porch. As for Jill, she tried to text me once. Nothing dramatic. Just, "I hope you're doing okay. I miss the quiet. I miss you." I didn't reply. I just changed her contact name to Lesson Learned and moved on. But she wasn't done yet. Because one morning, about a month after that, I got an email from a name I didn't recognize, Kendra Reeves. Subject line, "Seeking reference for Jill Hartley." Turns out Jill had applied for a position at a nature retreat startup in Colorado, some hybrid between a yoga center and a luxury animal sanctuary. She'd listed me as a former partner and character reference. The gall. I waited a few hours before replying, then sent one line. "Jill has a strong imagination and an adventurous spirit. I recommend you keep her away from the married staff and anything marked confidential." Didn't get a response. Didn't expect one. But the next day, Jill texted again. "You torpedoed my job." I stared at the message, thought about all the torpedoes she'd launched behind my back, and just sent a thumbs up emoji. She blocked me after that. Good. Some endings need punctuation. You'd think that after a public takedown, a social collapse, and a solid few months of radio silence, a person like Jill would have learned something. But learning wasn't her style. Performing was. Which is why, 6 months after our little cookout renewal, I found myself face-to-face with her again, under fluorescent lights, across a plastic desk, holding a manila folder. But I'll get to that. First, the rebuild. Life after Jill was honest. It didn't sparkle. It didn't smell like imported candles or come with curated playlists. But it felt real. The ranch ran smoother. The dogs seemed happier. Even Hank stopped grumbling so much. I'd picked up a part-time consulting gig with a cattle health startup in Dallas. Remote mostly, a couple Zoom calls a week, one visit a quarter, all above board. That's how I found myself sitting in a downtown office lobby one Tuesday in October. It was a sleek setup, clean lines, lots of glass, and enough fake plants to make it feel like California had sneezed into Texas. I had an in-person interview with their board, Just a formality to finalize the contract. The receptionist buzzed me in, then glanced up. And froze. I froze too. Jill, wearing corporate black, a plastic name tag that read visitor check-in, and a tight, professional smile that twitched like a dying circuit. Eli, she said, voice thinner than I remembered. I smiled like I'd just seen a weather update. Hey there. Her eyes scanned me like she was looking for proof I'd gained 40 pounds or remarried a supermodel. I gave her nothing. She gestured stiffly toward the waiting area. They'll be out shortly. Appreciate it. We sat, 20 feet apart. Same air. Different planets. The silence between us wasn't tense. It was surgical. Like two people who'd both memorized the anatomy of the wreckage but were too bored to rehash it. After a minute, she spoke. You look, well, hard to look bad when you're not hiding anything. I said. That one landed. Hard. She blinked, sat straighter. I didn't know you were consulting in AG Tech. And I didn't know you were greeting visitors. Guess we've both been expanding our horizons. There it was, a flicker. Her jaw tensed just a little. You cost me a lot, she said, quiet but firm. That slideshow? That was accurate. I offered. Verifiable. Kinda poetic. Her cheeks flushed. You humiliated me. I leaned forward. No, Jill. You humiliated yourself. I just set up the projector. She stood abruptly, turning toward the hallway as a suited exec appeared. Mr. Hartley, he said, offering a handshake. I stood, calm and clean-cut. Thanks for having me, I said, not even glancing back at Jill. The meeting went well. They loved my proposal, asked all the right questions, and signed the dotted line before the second pot of coffee finished brewing. On the way out, I passed the reception desk. It was empty. Figures. But taped to the counter was a sticky note. My name. In her handwriting. Nothing else. No message. No number. Just my name. I took it. Folded it once. Dropped it in the trash on the way to the elevator. Walking out into the sun, I realized something simple but solid. Closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes from altitude. And I'd already climbed out of her orbit. They say revenge is best served cold. But honestly, I think it tastes better when it's served casually, with boots up on the porch rail, a cold drink in hand, and the other person wondering if you ever even cared enough to stay mad. It had been a full year since the cookout. The grass had grown back where the arch once stood. The only reminders were a few boot scuffs in the dirt and a ribbon I found in the tree line months later, tangled like a ghost still trying to make a grand exit. Funny how the land forgets faster than people. The ranch was thriving. The herd was stable. I'd expanded the fencing, partnered with a few local ranchers on grazing rotation, and even took on a couple AG Tech side gigs that paid better than I expected. Turns out being quietly competent is rare enough to be valuable these days. I hadn't heard from Jill in months. Last I'd heard, through Hank's wife's sister's friend, small towns never disappoint, she'd moved to Denver after things didn't pan out at the startup in Dallas. Tried her hand at freelance, spiritual consulting. Whatever the hell that meant. Probably yoga classes with a side of wine and trauma bonding. She'd faded from my life like a bad radio station, all static and no signal. Until last week. It was a Thursday mid-afternoon, hot enough that even the flies had given up. I was out at the west pasture, checking a trough, when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I'd ignore it, but something made me pick up. Eli Hartley, the voice asked. Speaking. This is Natalie from Texas Homestead Monthly. We're doing a piece on sustainable ranching and heard about your rotational co-op model. I blinked. From who? Your name came up at a recent AG Tech event. Said you were one of the quiet innovators. Quiet innovator. Not bad. They asked for a photo shoot, an interview, the works. I agreed, why not? Good PR helps when you're looking to expand. They scheduled it for the following week. Now here's the kicker. Day of the shoot. I'm back on the porch, freshly shaved, in a clean flannel I actually ironed. The photographer shows up, young guy, too much gear, too many questions. He starts setting up, asks if he can get some atmospheric shots around the barn. I say sure. 15 minutes in, his assistant walks up. Blonde, tall, wide smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Hey, she says, squinting in the sun. I'm here to do the prep questions before the interview. I turn around, and there she is. Jill, looking different, more polished, more tired, like someone who learned how to fake stability better than she ever learned to live it. For a second, we just stood there. Her smile flickered. I wasn't supposed to say anything. They booked me last minute through the agency. I didn't know it was your ranch until I saw the address. Right? I said, folding my arms. She stepped onto the porch slowly, like she was hoping the wood might collapse and spare her. You look, she started. Healthy, I offered. Happy? Whole. She sighed. Different. I nodded. That's accurate. There was a long pause before she said it, the line I'd seen coming since the moment she reappeared. I never stopped thinking about this place. That's funny, I said. Because you couldn't wait to leave it. Her mouth opened, closed. I was scared back then. I felt stuck, like I didn't know who I was. You were married, I said flatly. That's who you were. She flinched. Real, not performative. I made mistakes. No, I said. You made a pattern. She swallowed hard. I'm not that person anymore. I believe you, I said, surprising even myself. But I'm not interested in finding out what the new one wants. Silence again. Behind us, the camera clicked. She looked out over the pasture, squinting. It really is beautiful, she whispered. I thought it was boring. I smirked. You confused peace with emptiness. She gave a sad laugh. You always did see things clearer than I did. I looked at her then, not with anger, not even disappointment, just clarity. You should go, I said. They'll be done in an hour. They can email me the rest. She nodded, slowly, like her feet weighed more than the rest of her. She turned to leave, then paused. I'm glad you're doing well. I was always doing well, I said. You just never noticed. And that was the last time I saw Jill. No big blow-up. No grand revenge encore. Just two people standing in the wreckage of something she thought she could burn without consequence. She left behind a legacy, all right. Not of love, but of lessons. The kind you don't write down, you build fences around. That night, I sat back on the porch, dogs at my feet, air thick with crickets and mesquite. The photographer had packed up. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the field like brushstrokes on canvas. And I realized something simple, quiet, and permanent. The land never betrays you. People might, but the land? It always gives back what you earn, if you've got the patience to wait for it. And subscribe to the channel